Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Tutorial Tuesday. I'm very excited to be here with all of you. We have our new setup. I'm still sort of mucking about trying to get this functional. So thank you for your patience as we experiment. But I'm thrilled to be back. And we are going to get in on some stitching, or at least some fabric cutting, and starting the process of making our next project. Also, hello, Bess. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's so lovely to see you. So I'm going to be delving into the petticoat tonight. I wrote a little bit about it on Patreon today for Patreon subscribers. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to be making some fabric decisions tonight. So I think I've shown you a few details about the fabric, but we're going to look at the fabric. We're going to talk about my plans for the ruffles. I'm going to see how I get on with fabric cutting. I cleaned my table. I have my rotary cutters. I've got my pattern, so that's always a good sign. Hello, Phyllis. Hello, Argent Peacock. Hello, Done. It's so lovely to see everyone here. Thank you so much for joining me for Tuesday. I have been having such a sort of hectic, wild day, and getting ready for today was a series of fumbles and comic moments that really made me feel like I was in the midst of a slapstick comedy, which is never what I want when I'm getting ready to do some sewing. I definitely don't want to be doing slapstick. Sewing is not a good place to be stumbling and dropping things because you're working with a lot of sharp bladed objects and things. But this is why I generally wear closed-toed shoes when I'm in the workshop, to be honest, because sewing comes with some dangerous objects. But I've washed all my fabric, which is the most important thing you can do for a project like this, where you know you're going to be washing everything after. In general, if fabric is washable, it's really advisable to wash your fabric before you get into sewing a garment. Everyone will tell you this. It's very solid advice. There are lots of reasons to wash your fabric. One of them, frankly, is because fabric has been sitting on a shelf somewhere. If it's been in your workshop, you probably know mostly what's been going on with it. But if it's coming to you from a factory or a shop someplace, it may have been sitting on the shelf for quite some time. It's probably not super dusty, but it's got a bit of dust on it. It may have other things on it. Sometimes little creatures walk through a warehouse, especially if you're ordering from a place that has quite a large warehouse. So cleaning your fabric before you get started is very important. Beth says the fatigue she felt yesterday meant she decided to sort Legos instead of sewing, much less chaos than and much less chance of cutting oneself. Absolutely. Sometimes we have to make this choice, right? Like, am I having a day where I'm too tired or too feeling too ill or too distraught or too distracted for sewing? Sewing is a little bit of handling heavy machinery. I mean, it's not as large as a car, a horse's carriage, or an airship, or a forklift, but it's still sewing machines are not mucking about. You can sew through your digits, for instance. That's always a bad time. Rotary cutters and sewing shears, which should be kept sharp, are sharp. You can cut yourself as well as fabric. Not a good time. Don't do that. So it's a good idea to pause. This is definitely a day in which I would not try and do any intricate stitching. So I think I'm all right for some kind of bog standard things, but not a good time to do any sort of like French seams or anything like that. Bess says the Lego will be a beautiful autumnal centerpiece, so it's somewhat time sensitive. Oh my gosh. Oh, but I love that. Please take pictures and post them in the Discord, because both the Grand Arbiter and I adore Legos. I know we are not alone in our community, and I really want to see what you're doing with your autumnal centerpiece. It sounds so beautiful. Right, so sometimes I'm working with fabrics that I cannot wash, like all of that shot silk I love to work with, not washable. Or you can wash it. You can put it in water, but it will not come out the same. And it's with shot silk, it's because the colors are likely to bleed, and you'll get a third new color, which you may not have been wanting. It will, in general, washing silk will remove some of the sheen from the silk. So if you've got a solid colored silk, it's not shot, and you want to launder it before you work with it, you intend to wash it afterwards, you want to make it a more easy care garment, you can wash it. You can. Just like you can wash cotton and linen, you may need to adjust your heat. You may need to avoid the dryer, but you can wash it. And it depends again on the silk in question. Usually, if it's a solid color, it just removes that sheen. Something like silk noir or raw silk does not have as much sheen. You can definitely wash that. I always wash my silk noir, and I love that fiber for a variety of like mid-century, mid-20th century garments and slinky dresses and things. It's got the most buttery, luscious quality to it, and it cuts beautifully on the bias. It's a little bit nubby, so it's not as woody, let's say, as charmeuse, but it still is a very luscious fabric. So things like that you can launder. But when I am working with a fiber that I don't want to get wet, that I don't want to launder, I press it with a pressing cloth at the highest heat it can take to sort of kill anything that might be on it. The pressing cloth picks up any stains or dirt that might be on the surface, and then I can launder the pressing cloth. So there are ways around if you cannot actively wash your fabric. But for a petticoat or split drawers or chemise, a shift, that sort of thing, I want to make it so I can throw it in the regular laundry, the regular wash. I will be very clear, very honest, that I rarely throw my garments into a modern dryer because that, oscillation in the high heat and everything, it really beats up your garments. And so they will wear out more quickly than if you hang them to dry after laundering them. So I rarely throw my things in the dryer, but I prepare my underpinnings as though they are going to go into both the washing machine, the mangle, and right into the dryer as well. They're going to get the full modern experience, as it were. And so I wash and dry my fabrics beforehand. And then I do my utmost to also press them. Pressing things turned into a bit of a debacle today, but I pressed what I could before we got started, and I gave the rest of it a bit of a side eye. This is how I knew that things were a little bit out of kilter, if you will. So let's talk a bit about this pattern that I'm getting ready to work on. This is the Truly Victorian TV 170. It has 4 different styles of petticoats. We've got our 1870s, 1876. That's sort of your early bustle. There's a natural form, which is that like intermediate period between early bustle and later bustle. So that there is, like usually with natural form, there is some mild padding over the posterior. So it does have a little bit of like shapeliness that gets built in, but not as extensive as like early and late bustle. I tend to have a love affair with late bustle. So that's sort of the 1883 to 1889, most of the 1880s. As you can see, I'm just a child of the 80s, really. And so that tends to be the variety I make. Also, hello, Marlena. It's so lovely to see you. Thank you so much for joining. Cheers. Also, if dear Phyllis is here, today's a very cat day, so I thought it was a perfect day for a cat mug. Thank you again. I really love my kitty mug. Look at this. I know we're here to sew, but this is the most charming, amazing mug. And also, like, look, it has teacups and tea bags on the inside as well. I'm really smitten. So I'm making the late bustle petticoat, and the big difference is that the early bustle has a bit more floof to it, a bit more fullness, a bit more flounce all the way around. And late bustle tends to be a bit more tailored in the front, and most of the fullness is in the back. And so you've got this like smoother front area, and you want to build in all of that fullness to the back. The whole thing about these petticoats is that they support your silhouette. So really good advice I got early on when I was getting into making time traveling frocks to take me into the bustle era. A dear sewist told me one of the most important things I could do is make petticoats. They will support your silhouette like nothing else. And really, with historical garments of any age of time travel, the underpinnings are one of the most essential things you can make. I think spending your efforts on making a really good underpinning set will make you ready for success with everything else. It's worth the time to really focus in on those things before anything else. I'm in a phase where I'm replacing some things and also building out some extras so that when I go for time traveling for more than a day or two, I have a few options so I can have clean underpinnings that I don't have to launder whilst I'm in a hostel at night, which is something I have done frequently and I don't love. So I'm very excited to have some underpinnings, some more underpinnings, so I'm not having to do this, like get done with the day of entertaining and engaging with everyone and then doing laundry back in the hostel. So I'm going to be making a late bustle petticoat. It's view 3. There's also view 4 in this envelope, which is your belle epoque petticoat. Like if you're going to do 1890s, you need so many petticoats, more than I generally need, because there's so much fullness at the hem. But this is the one I'm going to be making. This is the one I'm going to be making. You can see it has like a long flat front, a bit of a flounce here, some flounciness back here. So one of the things I'm pondering is adding some additional ruffles, possibly back here in the back, sort of a combination decorative functional, and then having just the normal ruffle in front. I might add an additional ruffle here as well, and then more ruffles in the back. Those petticoats, they support the shape of your skirts, by which I mean they keep your hem supported so your hems don't collapse. Collapsing hem sort of takes away from the visual impact of the silhouette. It sort of like caves in and it makes your skirts look less luxurious, and we want them to look as decadent as they are. It also will show off all of your hard lines from your bustle cages underneath. So if you have any sort of skirt improvers, bustle cages, farthingales, hoop skirts, all of those things, they need a petticoat over them so that you don't see all of the ridges and lines of those understructures. So petticoats are where it's at, my darlings. Also, hello, Mama Step. I'm so happy you're here. Welcome, welcome. Oh, this is wonderful advice. Yes, Beth says another way to make a petticoat for any era is to use your outer skirt pattern, shorten it a little, and add ruffles where needed. It's a great way to use your markup. Absolutely. That's such solid advice. Excellent advice, honestly. The ruffles on the hem, on the bottom sort of tier of your petticoat, they look beautiful, but they're actually very functional as well. That is what's creating the softness and the support at your hems. And in cases where I feel like I could use additional petticoats, sometimes I cheat and I add additional rows of ruffles. So it acts like an additional petticoat at the hem without me having to buy all the yardage and create another additional petticoat. That also cuts down on some of the weight and some of the heat of my undergarment. It makes for one sort of medium heavy petticoat rather than 2 or 3 petticoats that are all sort of building up layers of fabric and heat. So that's a sort of like modern interpretation of some historical options. So I also want to hone in on the part where Bess mentioned that you need to make certain your petticoat is a little shorter than your outer skirt because you don't want your petticoat to show. So one of the problems I'm having currently is I have a couple of wonderful petticoats that are just ever so slightly too long for some of my skirts. I do a variety of lengths of skirt, depending on where I'm going to be wearing the garment. Often I make my skirts slightly shorter than the toe of my shoe, so that the toe of my foot when I'm walking is unencumbered by the skirt. So the skirt just comes right over the top of my foot. When I'm taking a step, I'm not accidentally catching on the front hem of my skirt. That's an accessibility thing that I keep in mind. It's also, frankly, it comes from the many, many years we spent doing Wild West Con out at Old Tucson Studios. After a while there, I just started making everything short because there was so much scree and cacti and dirt and literal tumbleweeds on the ground, and I was taking home half the desert in my skirts. I did one time bring home an entire tumbleweed in my skirts. Very shocking. So I have learned to like make adjustments to my skirt length. All right. So good. To get out all of my bits. One of the things about this particular pattern, truly Victorian, is it's pretty quick to put together, and it is delightfully versatile for many different silhouettes. So I appreciate that. It also has a wonderful size range. All right. So we need flounces. We have a solid back piece. So many rectangles. And we've got scads of ruffles, which we're going to figure out as we go along. Yep, all right, I want that. And normally I don't use the pattern pieces for for the ruffles because they're just a lot of rectangles. So that piece I tend to set aside. I can trace on my own rectangles, to be honest. So thank you, Phyllis. It's definitely a cat theme today. So I've got my cat earrings and my little cat blouse and my little cat necklace, and I'm being very feline today, as we sometimes need felines in our life. So, I always check and make certain that I am doing the right thing, cutting the right amount of things. Okay. Because it's very easy when you've got a host of rectangles and a pattern envelope that has multiple options for your patterns to like lose track of what you need to be cutting. So let's look at the fabric. That's always the fun part. This is my main fabric for the petticoat body. It's a very lively print. It is directional, I think, although you can choose your direction. But I am going to be watching to make certain that I'm cutting everything in the same general direction because I want my posies to be lining up in the same way. Archer Peacock says it was a Doctor Who day for her today. That sounds lovely. I hope it was lovely. So let's talk about this fabric a bit, and floral fabrics in general, and prints in general. So some prints have a top direction and a bottom direction. They're directional. Some prints are very busy or symmetrical, and so they go the same direction up and down. Hello, JLH. Hello, Cheshire. It's good to see you. Floral prints are the tricky ones, in part because you kind of want your flowers to be growing upwards as the sort of rule of thumb. So when I'm cutting out floral prints, I generally set up my design so the flowers are all pointed up. But this particular design by William Morris he has his flowers going in both directions. So we've got, you see this beautiful, very intricate pattern, and like in the same piece that you'll have a flower going up, you'll have one going down. So for me, I was trying to determine what was the sort of main focal point and how did it sort of lay out with most of the flowers pointing up. And I'm honing in on this particular flower. It's very large. It's one of the largest flowers in the design. So I'm treating that as my focal point. And when I use that one as my focal point, most of the flowers are going up. A few are pointed down, but most of them are pointed up. So that's going to be the direction of my cutting. This is a gorgeous black, gray, and green print. The green absolutely does not read on the screen. It's a very light, silvery sage green, and you have to see it in the light and you have to sort of be in person. I love that hint of green because I'm getting ready to do a costume set that has a lot of green in it. I wanted to pull that green out a bit. And so I went to a local quilting shop and I picked up some silvery sage green fabric. This has a little bit of sparkle to it, which I had not intended to get sparkly fabric, but it's the perfect color and it is 100% cotton. I've also pre-washed and dried and pressed this as well. You can see perhaps how that causes some of that green now to pop out a bit. So that's doing what I wanted. So I'm going to be using this and also this for my ruffles. I love this gray stripe because it plays with some of the grays in here. And I love this kind of geometrical experience of a stripe. I'm probably going to cut this on the bias, which causes a lot of fun in my opinion. So what will happen is I'll likely do green with some of this stripe peeking out underneath, because I want the green right next to the print to make that green come out a bit in the print. The question is now, would I do 3 layers? So I have green, stripe, and then black, because that's kind of nice for my ruffles. I might do that. Put this stripe in the middle, or I could do like, depending, I could do like green, stripe, black, stripe, green, maybe. But I'll probably just do the 3 because that's a bit easier. And I know I want this green to be right next to the print. So this is my plan right now for the ruffles. Wish me luck. It's all cotton fabric. Everything's been washed, dried, ready to go, I hope. So fortunately, I know my measurements. I'm been sewing for myself a long time. I have that sort of sense of my size. I don't need to measure myself to get started. But if you are making this for the first time, you need a couple of key measurements. You're going to need your waist in your corset. You're going to need your hip measurement. You need to know how long you need this to be. So I don't want mine to be longer than 40 inches finished, but I'm probably going to shoot in the 38 to 39 inch range for things. And thank you. Bess says she loves the combination. It's really snazzy. Thank you very much. I'm so very happy. I'm really excited. As I shared with Patreon, I like to make my underpinnings pretty. There are lots of reasons to do like a solid color on your underpinnings. There are lots of solid, very sensible, very practical reasons to do just like a white or cream and unbleached underpinnings, if you will. Part of that is if they get a stain, you can bleach them. You can bleach that stain right out. If something, if they get really filthy, it's easier to just do some very hardcore approaches to laundering an all white or all, natural, neutral color fabric. And so I think that's why a lot of underpinnings get done in white. The other reason I suspect is because people see them always in white and they assume they have to be in white, but you don't need to do all of your underpinnings in white. And in fact, if you've got a really dark garment that you're making, you may not want to put white underpinnings under your garment. You may want something dark so that the white doesn't show through. And vice versa, if you are doing really light garments, you probably don't want super dark underpinnings underneath them. The other challenge with white is that, strangely enough, white can show through more crisply under light underpinnings, under light undergarments, even white ones, than a pastel colored underpinning, especially pink. A nice sort of like soft beigey pink disappears so beautifully under just about any garment. And I love this. So Beth says there are some absolutely spectacular, colorful and patterned petticoats in the museums. Yes, and they do not get enough play. They don't get enough love. And I'm obsessed. So I think, do what feels right for you always. But personally, I keep making really colorful, really beautiful petticoats. I want to enjoy wearing them, and I want to have fun with it. So also, I'm not in the business of bleaching things, so that really helps. All right, let me just move some things around so I can get to cutting. I will be using my rotary cutter a lot for this. I also tend to pull out one of my quilting rulers for this. One of the challenges with my setup for streaming, I really need to find another place to put the tablet because it's currently taking up a huge swath of my cutting area, which is why I keep looking at it like, where do I put you? It does enable me to see your comments though, which is really, that part's really nice. It's also making it possible for us to appear on multiple platforms at one time. So I love that. That's very exciting. Hello, Deborah. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you, my friend. It's been so long. I'm also having a hot flash because of course I am. So pardon me, just a moment. So yes, I love a colorful petticoat, and a geometric one is also so delightful. Oh yes, and this is so fantastically stated. Beth says a white petticoat, it can get really boring really fast. Yeah, having the color, having the geometric shapes, having a print, that can make the sewing much more interesting for our brains. And that helps when you're sewing, you know, a million pin tucks or what have you. Deborah, so happy you can be here. It's so lovely to see you. I'm glad I can do this thing where we are able to be on multiple platforms. I do need to keep working on the setup. Clearly, I'm discovering as we speak that I'm like not entirely happy with how I have things set up, but we're still in the experimenting phase. So, all right. If I keep throwing things off the table, eventually I will have enough room for cutting. So Deborah says, I love embellished petticoats. Yeah, they're so lovely. Oh my gosh. Oh, Archie Peacock says also typing with faux nails is yes. So I have plenty of yards of this fabric. I could make the entire petticoat out of this fabric, but I don't want to. I want those ruffles to be sort of interesting combination of fabrics. So I'm going to make the main body out of this. And as I said, I pressed, I washed, I pressed everything before we got started. Sometimes I press while I stream, but it's really hot. And so if I can avoid it these days, I really try. It is important to press your fabric before you get cutting. Largely so you can get accurate cut and therefore an accurate fit to your garment. It can feel really like, well, I'm just doing, you know, a petticoat and it's not that complicated of a fit. Do I have to be so persnickety? You don't have to be. You never have to be persnickety. But I have to tell you, as someone who started out with being very lackadaisical about many things with sewing, when I was teaching myself and cutting lots of corners because I didn't see the value to doing something X, Y, or Z way, I learned all the reasons why you should do things. My makes were a lot less sharp looking. The fit was always slightly off. And everything looked a little bit wonky all the time. It was harder to get things even, and that's because I hadn't pressed before I started cutting. Oh, I love this. Yes, Beth says embellished or colorful petticoats can also moonlight as modern history bounding skirts. More excuses to wear them for the win. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I love that because you know what? Especially if you go about finishing this one the way I do, which is with a tailored waistband. I put in a placket in the back opening so it can be totally closed. It looks a lot more like a skirt than a petticoat. It doesn't have any like places where it will fall open and reveal your chonies, as we say out here in the Sonoran Desert. So, all right. So first things first, let me get out my pattern piece. I'm going to measure this to remind myself. I always use half-inch seam allowances. This pattern company, lots of historical patterns are drafted with half-inch seam allowances. So I'm really used to it. All right, so just do. Sometimes the instructions will tell you what the finished length is on a garment, and I'm just confirming to see if this one does, because I don't recall. And if they tell you the finished length, then it's a lot easier to know how much you need to shorten a thing. And I saw earlier that Cheshire was talking about what a strange measurement to like have to keep in mind, 39 inches. Yes, I mean, look, I am fairly short. A lot of my length is in my waist. So I think I look taller seated than I do standing because I'm a short person. I have got kind of like stumpy legs, and they get me where I need to go. So I know that I always have to shorten things, and it's always a bit of a weird length that I need to shorten them. So, right. So this main panel, the center side panel rather, is 33 inches, which would mean it's 32-inch finished length because of that half-inch seam allowance. That's not too bad, but we've got our ruffle on the bottom, and so I'm just going to check that length as well. So that's about 6 inches. So that would put me around 38 inches if I did it exactly as it is. So I'm going to shorten it just a little smidge from that. Where do I like to shorten it? For something like this, Phyllis, that's such a great question. So sometimes I just shorten the ruffle by a smidge, but often for something like this, a petticoat, because I want that fullness in the overall shape, I will often shorten in the middle to keep the fullness at the hem. So that's a great question. That's certainly how I handle like my overskirts and that sort of thing, as I shorten them in the middle, and then I I use a ruler. I'll try and show you. I'll see if I can show you all what that looks like. I use a ruler then to kind of smooth out the little dog leg that happens when I shorten it at the middle. Now, sometimes because it's easier, I just shorten at the bottom, of course, and then I live with a hem that's not quite as full. If I know I'm putting a lot of ruffle on a thing, I can probably get away with making it slightly less full at the hem. But I want a lot of fullness here. I know that I'm going to be doing a really wild skirt, and I like the dragon skirt. I would just like a lot more oomph, if you will. So I'm going to shorten it by 2 inches. Probably going to add a little lace to the bottom, so this gives me some room to play with. I'm just going to fold in the amount I'm going to shorten. Very noisy and a little bit unwieldy right now, but we're going to get there. So I've just folded up the amount. So Deborah asked, will I use cording for more oomph? This is a wonderful question. So let's say I decided that I wanted to put cording around the petticoat above the ruffles. If you've taken one of my corset classes, it's what I did with my last corset. It does cause the corset to stand out better and to maintain its shape better. And it sort of can give a little bit of vibes of pin tucks, but it's not pin tucks, it's just cord. And I hadn't really considered it until right at this moment when you said something, Deborah. And now I kind of am considering it, which is not a great thing to be considering. I need to decide before I start cutting my fabric. But I think cording always looks really sharp. But it's very time consuming and can drive you a little bit balmy to do this much cording. I've done a fully corded petticoat before, and only once, and I treasure that petticoat. It's got a lot of body. The other option is horsehair braid right at the hem over your flounces or your ruffles, and that too will help hold the shape a little bit better. The difference here is that the cording can eat up a little bit of length, and so if you're going to put cording in, you may shrink the length of your petticoat a bit. So that's where I'm like, oh, I have to really think about that, make a decision fairly sprightly before I start cutting. Now I'm also considering adding lace, and I can always make my ruffle a bit longer if I want to do the cording. Bess says corded petticoats were quite the thing before metal cages. This is very true. And when she thinks of cording in petticoats, she thinks 1830s. So the corded petticoat I made for myself was for like an 1840s pre-hoop, pre-metal cage period of skirts. And it also can be, it can like give you some of that shape into the early part of those big bell-like skirts without requiring all of the metal and things. But mostly I was using it for a somewhat earlier silhouette, and I keep it around because I love it. You can also use some cording techniques to help with your like 1890 silhouettes because those skirts are so wide. Sometimes you want a little bit more oomph. So I think what I'm going to do, because this is petticoat and I have a lot of sewing, is that maybe I'll just throw a little bit of horsehair in, and I will start myself from the urge to cord. I'm going to save my own mental health, I suppose. All right. Let's put my teacup on a corner of fabric. Nothing. That should work out just fine, right? Nothing ever bad comes of doing that, right? It's totally fine. But I want you to know, Deborah, I'm very, as why I had to think about it. The lust in my heart at the idea of doing cording was very strong. So it also helps you keep your petticoats away from your feet, towards the bottom of your hems. Absolutely. I don't think I would put cording right at the bottom of my hem for something like this where I've got a ruffle, unless I was doing like a very I've seen it in ruffles, but I would probably just put horsehair in the hem of the bottom ruffle in that case. So it will, if you put cording in a ruffle, it will give it sort of tremendous body, though. It will be very stiff and like really stand away from the body, which is great if that's what you're going for. Right. The other thing I love to use are my pattern weights, and Deborah will recognize these. These are my favorite pattern weights. She'll recognize them because she made them for me, and they're also very on brand, very on theme for today. So I'm going to throw out some pattern weights, get everything sort of in position. If this were like a fancier skirt, like a foundation skirt, for, my outer portions of the garment, I would not be simply tracing my adjustments onto the fabric. But for the petticoat, whilst I want it to fit and I want it to look nice, it's a simple enough shape that I am just going to make my adjustments right here on the fabric. I'm just setting this up so I can show you some options how to make this little adjustment. Yeah. So hold on. Here we go. This is the fun thing, is I believe I can get you looking down at the garment, fingers crossed. Okay, you're not going to see the whole swath of things, but I want you particularly to see this section. So it's very small, but you can see this is where I took up the length in the middle of the pattern piece, and I get this little dog leg. And mostly this is a very straight line here, so I can just bring my ruler in and sort of ease in that line. But there's just a tiniest bit of curve at the top of the pattern, just the tiniest. So if I'm feeling that the straight line is not really working for me, I can always come in with, for other things, not for this. This is, I think, will be fine with a straight ruler. You can always use your curved ruler to do a very similar thing on a more curvy seam. But for this, I should be able to just basically connect right through there. I'm going to use my Choco. To make a little cutting line for myself. Et voila. These are a lot of straight lines, so I can actually use the big rotary cutter to good effect here. When I'm cutting curved lines, curved seams, oh, hello, Monsieur Ghetto. I like to use the smaller rotary cutter because I have more control and it will more easily go over curves. Hello, Monsieur. Did you hear I was streaming and you were like, I have not come to say hello to people in a while, so I must be in the middle of everything. All right. Okay. So there are some challenges off screen that come of the way I'm set up right now. So I do think I need to make some adjustments. The cat is not the challenge off screen, though. He's the challenge on screen. Hello, Cake. Yeah, you're so curious about what I'm doing. I know. I love you too. I love you too, Monsieur Ghetto. Who's my best boy? Yes. Tell everybody about how you suffer. Oh, you're suffering. Things are so difficult. Yes. Oh, the torment, the agony, the neglect that you endure. He only had 2 treats before we got started. However shall he go on? He's going to be 11 this November. I keep trying to make him a year older than he is. He'll just be 11, which is still, getting into senior kitty territory. It's hard to believe because he still acts like he's such a baby. I know, you act like the babyest baby. You're my good boy. Has he had his 7 yet? No, he has not had his full 7. He had 3 this morning and he had 2 before we streamed. So he's had 5 treats. Hello. Hello. Hi. You're just right in the midst of everything. Do you need to check my tea as well? All right. My darling, be over here. This is exactly where I want to cut right now. Watch your nose, watch your whiskers. So Monsieur is definitely helping, as he so often wants to do. I really think he heard that we had company and he wants to be admired. Tell everyone about how you suffer, my darling. Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, you're a good boy. It is the Gatto attack. He's giving me such a look. Big purrs, though. All right, darling. Yes. Tell everyone how you suffer. You're going to bite me now? All right. Can I finish cutting? Would that be all right, do you think? What do you think? I have to work in the cat time into any estimates on how long things take, because there's always breaks for kitty cuddles and what have you. I know, you're a good boy. We're about to move the table, though. The whole table's going to move. What do you think about that? Oh, no. Oh! That's what he thinks about that. He's like, show them your messy workstation, wench. All right, Cake. Here we go. This is where it's very nice to have the adjustable height table, because I have to stand to reach this part that's on the other side that Monsieur Gâteau is currently sitting on. My darling. All right. No. All right, go over there. Go over there. Right, so I can do some cutting. Thank you. You make a wonderful fabric weight right up until you are sitting where I want to cut. So I'm just going to cut directly on the line I traced for myself. And then I'm going to go right back into following the pattern. And voila. And I want you to know that Monsieur Gâteau is trying to steal a pair of shears. That's a very bad idea. Those are not for kitties. Not for kitties. You could see you're over there. That's how I could see your chat. Thank you, my little shirt bow. Yeah, no, the silk is not calling him loud enough this evening. And I tell you, he's got his own little silk. Oh my gosh, look, come here. Look, you're a menace. Oh, you're a menace. Show everyone what a menace you are. Do you need another treat? Do you need another treat? He is feeling randy tonight. Right, have a bribe. So whilst he's being very difficult, I'm going to reorganize my fabric for the next piece. So one piece cut. You'll notice I didn't put my notches in. It's because I've made this garment so often that I usually don't notch it. But it's a good idea, especially if you're getting used to it, to use the notches. They're very helpful for lining things up and also keeping straight what seam, what side you're on, all of that. The notches tell you a few things, right? They tell you which seams to put together. So you match up the same notches on the same, on opposite sides of the same seam. They also tell you that you are lining a piece up in the right direction. So if you're dealing with like a curved seam, that you're putting like a convex into a concave curve, it can be really important to have those notches to help you position your seam. So notches have like multiple useful qualities. I'm just sometimes lackadaisical about them when it's a pattern I've made a million times. And so I don't always put my notches in. But if I'm working with a pattern for the first time, if I don't have a good sense of how that pattern goes together, I really want those notches. The other thing you'll see I didn't mark in at this point is the dart. So the petticoat has a dart here. This is the front side panel. It's shaped so that you can have a nice curve over your hips and abdomen. And those darts are very important, but darts are a suggestion in terms of like size and placement. And I have to always make my own determinations where I need a dart. Yes, and Deborah says the notches can also indicate the frontmost seams and the side or back seams. And they can also help you determine the directionality of a sleeve head going into the arm side. So notches, they are an important feature. They tell you a lot. Sometimes you can skip them. It's important to know the pattern before you make that determination. I'd say, like, if you're dealing with like a tea tunic, you probably don't need to worry about notches. Okay, one of the things I tend to do, as I'm working on a pattern, whilst I'm doing the cutting, is I tend to put the fabric that I cut with the piece, the pattern piece I just cut. It's sort of it's an administrative thing, if you will. That way I don't accidentally cut more of a piece than I need to. But also I get all of my pieces cut. Both of those, very important. It does, however, mean that at the end of a project, I have to be good and remember to put all of my pattern pieces back in the pattern envelope. Ooh. Ooh, my goodness. Archer Peacock says she also has a pattern for a neck corset. Very exciting. It will hopefully be a short project, but it definitely needs some adjustment. Oh, yes. And you're going to, like with a neck corset, you're really going to want to get back. Just so. All right, as you all know, I just did this big, or maybe you don't all know, but as most of you know, did this recent box thing, this mystery box thing. We're still in the process of like the logistics of contacting everyone, making sure we have the right mailing information, all of that sort of thing. But when I was putting together the boxes, for the most part, I did not include any really small offcuts of fabric. Usually, I mean, if it's really small, I definitely throw it into my cabbage bin. But this is like fairly sizable offcut. And so I sometimes ask myself, if I don't end up using something of that size for a small project or part of the garment I'm working on, is that a size people would want? If I was like, these are all really cool offcuts that are enough for corset making or hat making or quilt making, but not enough for like a full garment. Is that something people would be interested in? I ask because I will definitely do the mystery box thing again in the future. All right. Oh, wait. Archer Peacock says, sorry, I missed that. I was on the phone with someone else. Did you, my question that I just asked? So the question was, if I am doing a mystery box giveaway, not giveaway, sale thing in the future, would larger offcuts of fabrics be something people would be interested in? It's enough to be like doing the lining of a hat or a small chapeau or details on a corset or to make quilt squares, but it's not enough to make like a full garment. Oh yeah, they could also be used for cravats. That's true. That's true, Captain Azar. Also, hey, hello. Oh, this Beth says maybe 1 or 2 boxes could be offcut boxes, quilt boxes. That's a really fun idea. I will sort of plan accordingly. Deborah says there's always pockets and linings. She's currently doing foundation paper piecing and would be interested in pieces as small as 10 by 10. Oh, wow. What 1 or 2 coordinating offcuts to match what else is in the box. That's such a good idea. Cheshire says, I don't know what offcuts are. I'm such a noob. Let me explain as I'm like shifting the fabric and the pattern pieces for my next cutting. So this is an offcut. It's the weird scrap that I ended up with on the side of that petticoat piece that is too narrow to be another petticoat piece and also too strange a shape to become a ruffle. I could maybe get a waistband out of it, but then it would be going the wrong direction. And because this is directional fabric, I don't want to piece the waistband if I don't have to. That's kind of a lazy person's attitude. But it's enough to be making a small project out of. And so my question was kind of like, I avoided that in this last thing. Is that something that people would want in their lives? So, thank you. I got some great answers. And hopefully, Cheshire, I gave you a good answer as well. All right. So now we're going to do centre front. Oh, Deborah says it'd make a good reticule as well. Yeah, reticule, cravat, hat linings, pockets. Honestly, that's enough to do some small charming things with. A housewife, yes. All right, so I've made this particular pattern so many times, a million times. I've lost track because I've made, dozens of petticoats, right? And I've made all sorts of shapes of petticoats. But at some point, I clearly decided the better part of valor was to shorten it from the top. And look, I understand why I would make that choice. I am very hippie, and so having more fullness over my hips works really well for me. So that's a very easy place for me to shorten something like this and just make my waist a little bit fuller. It's going to be gathered into the waistband anyway. It's going to have darts, shaping, absolutely shorten it from the top. But when I did that, I clearly got a little bit exuberant with my rotary cutter, and I cut into the paper pattern piece. So keep in mind, be careful when you're using your rotary cutter to not cut your pattern if you can help it. Fortunately, it can be repaired with a little bit of Scotch tape. Yes. Yes. Is it Cheshire asks, is it enough for someone else to make the roundy edge bits of other pieces? Yeah, it is. It's enough to make, like some edge pieces. It's enough to do some like little trims. It's not enough for a full garment, but it's enough for little parts of garments or small projects. And I do keep some things like that in the workshop because I also make small projects, and sometimes I want to make them as gifts or what have you. Previously, I haven't done it in a while, but in the past I've done a lot of like tutorials that were small projects, and so I would always use scraps from the workshop for those. And so sometimes I keep my favorite fabrics around to make small projects like tea cozies and pin cushions and that sort of thing, but also cravats, like truly, or jabots. All right, I'm going to shorten this in the same way I shortened the last one, which is in the middle of the pattern piece. I'm going to be shortening it at the same points. I'm shortening it exactly the same amount. So when I'm shortening things, regardless of the method I choose, I tend to use the same method for all pieces in a garment so that they kind of line up. Of course, this one has been a smidge more difficult than the last one. Why not? All right. I like being able to do these quick pattern alterations like this for projects of this variety because it's quick. And, I'm going to be spending probably hundreds of hours on the outer garment. And so I want to preserve some of my timeline for those bigger, more visible garments. So I like some quick, dirty solutions, as it were. I also, sometimes I just want the delightful serotonin, the big dopamine hit, as they say, of getting to the sewing sooner rather than later. And if I can make the cutting and the alterations faster, then I can get to sewing faster. But also, look, I don't know if I can make this happen because this is not my normal. All right, so Monsieur Gâteau has decided he will take all the fabric. Hello, darling, I'm about to move you. You're about to being so upset with me. So much for my wonderful pressing. Honestly, it's still more smooth than when I pulled it out of the dryer. So Deborah Hensley Tay says, undergarments always seem to take forever for her to make, but she has time blindness issues. Yeah, no. Here's the thing, in my opinion, is that you can spend as much time as you like on any garment. You can make it as intricate and, as you can do as much really beautiful hand finishing and really gorgeous couture detail on any garment. I could really take my time with the petticoat, but I want that hit. I want to complete a thing. I haven't made anything since we finished the Westkit class, and that was an adventure. That was an adventure. And so I really want something that I know I can complete, that I know I can finish, and I want to get it done so I can go on to the next thing, which is probably the bustle cage. And I have to order some things for the bustle cage, so it couldn't be the first thing. I have to order my bones, and I need to actually measure out how much fabric I have, and if I need to add some more to it. I think I do, right? Yes, Monsieur. Argent Peacock says clearly Monsieur Gâteau is more interested in getting the tea than sewing. He is determined to have his way. It's true. It's true. Oh, all right. I see some other good questions. Let me answer those. So, Cheshire asks, do I prefer tracing patterns or cutting them out direct? It depends on the pattern. If it's a corset or some more fussy things like that, I will often trace them out to get a more accurate cut. And also to avoid, doing to that pattern what I did to the petticoat pattern. But for things like petticoats and a lot of the big panels on skirts and things, I tend to cut around the pattern because it's a very simple shape and it's big. And so it takes a long time to trace and then cut. So it depends on the thing. Hat patterns, I often trace those out and then cut them. Same idea, they're very small, they're very fussy, the shapes are complicated. So great question, Cheshire. Deborah asked, do I keep much for repairs? Depends. Again, everything is today it depends. So if it's an outer garment, then I keep every scrap for repairs for a time. And then once I've worn it a few times, I sort of release the really small scraps into the cabbage, unless it's fabric where I can never get more of it, and then I keep every inch. So, for instance, I have this beautiful frock I made eons ago. The Earl Grey afternoon tea is a linen garment with this gorgeous linen print that was like very evocative of a William Morris print that I just happened onto at Joann's, honestly. And at the time, was really new to time traveling to the 19th century. And I only got 5 yards of it, which was foolish, because I ended up making like 3 garments out of that fabric. The fact that I could make 3 garments out of it is kind of remarkable. I had to fussy cut and be very careful. But because I had so little of it, I saved every inch of that because I could never replace it. It's very particular fabric. But like with the dragon costume, for instance, I still have some rather large pieces of the silk left. And so I'll keep those all together, and then I'll keep some larger scraps, especially as it's possible for like scale to get damaged or something. I don't need a very large piece of fabric to replicate one of the scales. So I'll be keeping that for a while. But usually if the pieces are under a certain size, I put them in my cabbage bin. And for something like this petticoat, I probably won't be hanging on to the offcuts indefinitely. I might put some larger pieces aside for like potential projects. And if I still have them by the time I do another mystery box thing, then I will probably part with them in the mystery box thing because they're underpinned. Are so darling and also such a menace. Oh my goodness. All right, so the next question, I think I answered, yeah. So, right, so Deborah asks, a lobster tail. Yes, I'm doing the lobster tail bustle. That's my favorite kind. I go back to it again and again. Partly I really like the shape. Partly it's because it packs very nicely. And the other beautiful thing about it is it sews up so quickly. And I love that trifecta. That's great. Cheshire asks, cabbage bin, does fabric help veggies grow? I mean, I suspect you could use some of your, all natural organic fibers in your compost, probably. But thank you for asking the question because that is definitely a bit of jargon. So, cabbage is like the small scraps that it gets left over from the sewing process. I've heard all sorts of like folk etymology for why it's called that. I don't know if I've come on one that I think is like definitive, but that's just you call those little small scraps cabbage. And so I call my big basket where I throw off my small scraps of fabric my cabbage bin, because that's where I keep my cabbage. So, yeah. Argent Peacock says, I have fabrics in my stash for a very long time. I should try to sell them at this point. The projects they were purchased for will never happen. Look, it's very hard sometimes. And there's still some things that I've kept a hold of that I haven't sewn up for anything in a while, but I just wasn't quite ready to part with them. And I sort of hope I'll come up with a project for them. But there comes a point, and right now, in general, I mean, it's multiple things for me. When I really did want to make more space in the workshop, it's sort of overwhelming with things, and I'm trying to make it more orderly. And so fewer things make it easier to tidy and make it orderly. The other thing is Joann's went out of business. I know that people cannot as easily just get to the fabric store for weird little small amounts for projects or weird things that might inspire them to make something. And we kept it as inexpensive as we did, in part because I wanted to fill that sort of like niche of just going to the fabric store and grabbing something just because you thought it might be fun. So yes, but it's a good time to be sharing your fabric from your stash that you don't have a need for anymore because people are struggling to get fabric. And I always like to pass things on so they'll get used because fabric, especially beautiful fabric, I love when it gets turned into something. So yes, that was kind of like part of my motivation. Deborah says she loves the lobster tail style too. It's so fun and swishy. Yeah, I love that. I love it's got a great shape, great movement. Monsieur, my darling, what if you let me have just like maybe a couple of extra feet of the fabric and then you can have the rest of it? How's that sound? Ah, all right. We've achieved a little bit of a detente. Amazing. All right. So this next piece is cut on the fold. So for those who are like here, who are newer to sewing, cutting something on the fold is so that you can like get a larger pattern piece that's symmetrical. And so it's like you imagine the pattern piece is folded in half. And so you fold your fabric in half, you put the piece right up on that line. And usually they are marked with this little long line with an arrow on either end that makes a bit of a bracket. And normally it says cut on the fold, but that long line with the arrows on either end pointing towards the seam basically indicates cut on the fold. All right, Monsieur, you have really shifted things around, sir. He does not care. He is a cat and he does not care. All right. Let's see here. The nice thing about cutting something on the fold is there's less cutting. There's a whole seam you don't have to cut. I love that. All right, there we go. So I'm using my pattern weights again. Having a little challenge because Monsieur is taking up a large quadrant of the cutting table right now. And I did move him again because he gets very persnickety, and then we are fighting with him again. You can hear me talking about him though. I know, you want to help. It all seems like a toy to you. Yes, yes. Such a good boy. All right. Oops, I'm going to do my adjustment exactly the same way. My fold is on this side of the table, so I reversed my fabric so that I could do this without having to reposition the entire fabric to face me. I'm just going to connect the lines again with my Choco. Fight with my cat who is trying to take the ruler and the cutter and my hand and the fabric. Monsieur, you're so darling and such a menace. Watch your paws. Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. Sewing with cats sometimes means learning to sew with very sharp obstacles that are also attacking your hands. Hello, monsieur. I know, you're so excited. Yes, but that's very sharp and not for kitties. All right. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Little menace. Okay. All right. One more piece cut. That's very exciting. I need to readjust again. Here we go. I do love my adjustable table. It's extremely helpful. There we go. All right. So the two biggest pieces are cut. So that's the good news. The bad news is that Monsieur Gâteau refuses to be contained. Oh, the treats are only keeping him so long right now. Deborah, maybe because he's so excited to have you here. Oh, right. So Cheshire says, I didn't know you needed paperweights for cutting fabric. One more small thing. All right, so let's talk about it. Pattern weights versus pins. You don't need to have pattern weights. You can work just with straight pins. I like pattern weights, especially for things that are not really slick fabric that sort of woodges around on you. It has a lot of movement to it because they're faster than pinning. They're very convenient and they're pretty effective, especially for things like those cotton fabrics that don't have a lot of movement to them, or as I like to say, woodgy, which is not a technical term, but is a technical term in this workshop, if you will. So that said, you don't have to buy ready-made pattern weights. If you have a really good friend, she'll make you pattern weights that are incredibly cute and very gothic and have cats on them. These are wonderful. They have cats and skeletons, and I love them. And these are handmade. They have like BBs in them, some sort of metal shot that gives them weight. You can also just go to your local hardware store and pick up a bunch of washers, some metal washers, glue them together, and you can use that as your pattern weights. Some people use whatever heavy objects they have lying around the house that will stay still. Cats are notoriously bad fabric weights, although they will weigh down your fabric, but usually not in the place you want them to weigh it down, which is, how it goes. For instance, right now, he's doing a very good job of weighing down my fabric and looking extremely cute. And also, he looks like he has no desire to be moved whatsoever. So, and yes, Cheshire says, woodgy fabric gets turned into cabbage or set on fire, to be honest. Now, I do work with some woodgy fabrics periodically, but I don't recommend them as starting fabrics because they are so frustrating and they will really challenge you just to work with them. Ooh, I love this. Captain Azar says, I bought washers in 2 sizes, so she can use the smaller ones for curved, smaller pattern pieces. I love that. And Arctic Peacock says she also has small-footed barbells to hold fabric when she's cutting from a super large piece. I love that. That's very exciting. Small-footed barbells. Deborah Hensley Tay says she also uses crushed walnut shells as filling for weights and pin cushions because it's quite cheap for lots of filling. Yes. And it makes a wonderful pin cushion, honestly. So I have some in the workshop, I think courtesy of Deborah, actually. Maybe you recommended it to me. I can't remember if you sent it to me or recommended it to me because a while. So once again, I'm taking this piece, folding it up with the pattern piece, setting it to the side. So up next would be the back, the large piece that goes on the back of the garment, the upper piece. So I'm going to, let's see here. Right. So for the 1880s bustle, you can see we've got the smooth front and side, little ruffle there. Then we've got this big piece. You can see the seam line here. Then another piece here that's sort of gathered to give a little bit of extra fullness. So every place you see a seam in the back, that fabric's gathered into that seam. And so each new row of fabric is a little fuller, adds more volume to the back of the garment, adds more volume at the hem of the garment. So yes, there we go. Oh, Deborah says, I made a rainbow pincushion with the clip holders that's walnut shells. Oh, I love that. Yes. I love mine. This is so good. I love this pincushion. Such a great shape too. It always lives right here on my main work table. It's like it's my main pincushion. So when I'm not using the magnet one. So the next piece I would be cutting, except Monsieur Gâteau is currently completely asleep on my fabric and I'm not sure I want to move him. The next piece normally I would cut is this upper piece right here, out of that print fabric. And I'd probably do the next tier in the same print because I want my ruffles to be those three fabrics I showed you. So I think I'm going to do the bottommost ruffle out of black fabric, and then I'm going to do the middle ruffles out of that stripe. I'm going to do this out of that beautiful silvery sage green fabric. Very excited. And since Monsieur is so happily snoozing, let's take a look at lace. You want to look at lace? I want to look at lace. I think I'm going to put some lace on this petticoat. So let's see what I've got in my stash. I love describing it as lace auditions. That's such a great way of putting it, lace auditions. So here's the thing, lace is very expensive. Lace is one of those more expensive. Oh, hello, did I wake you up? You're going to stand on top of the lace bin? Oh my goodness. Monsieur, you're so, you really are just like, I want attention. I want to be in the middle of things. All right, there we go. He's like, lace box, yes, please. So the thing about lace is that it's very expensive. As Alicia said, as Arctic Peacock said, She needs to make a new Edwardian set of underpinnings, and those are so frothy. They're so beautiful, but they're so frothy, and they always have a million billion yards of lace and insertion and everything. They're the most gorgeous underpinnings, I think. But the lace budget is going to be very high, yes, because you need so much lace, right, for the Edwardians. But lace in general is one of the more expensive things you can purchase, especially nice lace. It's rare to get handmade lace anymore. Most lace that most of us are going to have access to is machine made lace. Some of it is quite good. It's been quite good for a long time. Handmade lace is, for the average person in this day and age, is going to be absolutely extraordinarily exorbitant. It was quite spendy when it was made originally. Lace makers were rare commodity and lace was rare. But one of the ways I manage affording lace for things is getting it secondhand. So getting it from places that are clearing out, an estate with someone's sewing stash, or secondhand on places like Etsy or eBay, what have you. When I go to LA, to the fashion district, sometimes you can find quite good deals on lace. But also, when they had it there, I like to go to the FIDM sort of thrift store that they had. So that's the Fashion Institute of Design and Marketing. I think it's the full name of that acronym. But it was in LA. Now it's at Arizona State University, or at least ASU controls FIDM. It's sort of like taking it under its umbrella. So I don't know if there's still a campus in LA and all of that. But I think that the charity shop closed during the pandemic. I don't think it's back, but you used to be able to get the most wonderful oddments there. Really great way to get gorgeous trim. So, but mostly I hunt things down. If I like it, I hold on to it until I have a really good project for it. And so this is like one of those things. So, look, this is not right for this project, but look at this. This would be so gorgeous as insertion lace. Really beautiful pattern. I've never seen anything else like it elsewhere. I am obsessed. So I keep holding on to that. I definitely got this from an estate. Again, I don't think this is right for the hems. It's very symmetrical on either side. This would be good in Edwardian underpinnings. Speaking of Alicia. Hello, Cindy Joy. Oh, yes. Cindy says she gets excited when she finds lace with 0 flowers. Yes. I mean, flowers are fine, but I don't always want lace with flowers. There's also cotton lace. It's sort of like crochet. I like this for some things. It can have a little bit more of a rustic vibe to it. Depends on how you use it. Apparently, I have a bunch of this, what's called beaded lace. All right, here's the thing. I can almost hear Cheshire saying, beaded lace, there are no beads on it. And I say this with love, I'm not teasing you, because when I found out this was called beaded lace, it made me a little bit crazy. And also, that is not optimized for Google searching. Beaded lace is an old term, and it means it has these little places in here that you can sort of like weave a ribbon through, and that's called beading. And so if you want lace with beads on, that also comes up when you're doing a search for beaded lace. So it makes me a bit crazy. This is very thick. This is a bit geometrical. I don't like it for this project, but it's fun. Yeah, I love beaded lace for things, especially. Ooh, what's this? I don't think I have enough of any of this, but oh my goodness. This has flowers on it, but it's very pretty. I would use this for something frothy. Absolutely. I only have the tiniest bit though, so this would go at like cuffs and a neckline or something like that, for which I did not need very much. Oh, I have another hunk of it though. That's nice. Oh, I think this is really beautiful. I don't think I have enough, but I really look at this. This is so pretty. Yeah. Yeah, the one I just have is too fussy to sew on, I agree. Kind of like this, but it's a very deep lace. I don't think I want something quite that deep for the petticoat. It's nice. I have scads of this. Very little sort of geometric cotton lace. Oh no, this I think might go into the next mystery box. It's nice, but I never can find the thing I want to use it for. Oh. Archer Peacock says, I have a big chunk of that to accommodate a 1-inch ribbon. It needs to be a peacock 4-part of a skirt. Just need to find the right shade of velvet for the rest. Yes. Oh, Turkish kaftan. That's a good idea, Archer Peacock. This would look very nice on a Turkish kaftan. It's true. Right vibe. Oh, man, I'm turning up a little. Oh, this is similar but less deep. This might be the thing if I have enough. So I'm going to put this aside as a maybe. This is also a good possible option because of the floral nature of things. This is a little narrow floral situation. Kind of like that for the hem, possibly. Set that to the side. Got a few yards here. I've used this one in some other things. Honestly, my darlings, I'm not certain why I've kept this, except it's very idiosyncratic. Strange little lace. When the right project comes along, it will be so right. It gives me a bit of a honeycomb vibe. Oh, all right. Look, for those of you who love an antique or a vintage piece, this is a dirndl. Oh, yeah, that'd be fun on a dirndl. Maybe a honeycomb dirndl. Deborah says that little sort of circular lace says 1960s to her. Cheshire says it'd be great for a tentacle dress. All of that is true. Those are great thoughts. All right, so this is ooh, that one's nice too. This is a great little treasure that I have in my stash. This is antique lace. This is antique Edwardian lace on the edge of an antique wedding veil. The veil is in very poor repair. It's full of holes. But the lace is still very good. And there's a fair amount of it. As I've been hanging on to this, it's so delicate. And the net, if the net were in better repair, the net is actually quite nice. It just, my understanding is the person who wore it last, it got sort of trapped in their hairstyle and ripped when they were taking it down, because the net is also quite nice, except for the number of damaged places. But the lace is in very good shape and good repair. And so this is the sort of thing where I will someday have the right project, and I will take all of this lace off and I will very carefully hand attach it. The net would work for a Halloween hat. I love that. That's a great observation. Actually, what a great idea, Deborah. I love that. So mom in Illinois, Phyllis says, I cut up my wedding dress and used the lace to make a bridal robe for her daughter. That's so lovely. I love that. What a sweet connection. All right. So we put some things back. Okay. Including this beauty. Arjun Peacock says, I may have to salvage the lace from my wedding dress for a project, but it will maybe be for an evening gown. Excellent. I too once got married a long, long time ago. I'm happily divorced, as I like to tell people. But I had a wedding dress that was all English net, embroidered English net. And I occasionally consider taking it apart, because I still have it, of course, to make something fabulous for the Grand Arbiter and I. Hello, Scorn Mistress. Hello, my darling. We're just talking about lace possibilities right now. Although I'm putting back most of it, because I think I've narrowed it down. I do have some dark laces as well, so maybe, black lace or something like that might be better, but we're going to start here. So I think these are my two strong options. Right. So I love this. Look at this. It's got like a little, almost gives a bit of a paisley shape to it. Oh, Cindy is so smart. Thank you. Cindy says, for the beading lace, try searching for entre deux lace. We'll also pull up insertion lace that way. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, Cindy. I really appreciate that bit of information. I did not know the formal French name for that kind of lace, and I love learning that. Scott Mistress says she was just on a jaunt with the Hobbit. They were collecting acorns. I love that. And Captain Azar says, I think the black lace might disappear on the lovely pattern of the fabric. Excellent point, my darling. Cindy says you can also search for lace with ribbon threaded through it. It will also include the ribbon. Yes. Excellent. So I think I'm really liking this like little paisley vibe. Really liking this flower vibe. And I like this little bit of pointiness here. I know I have to decide eventually, but also, did you know I have a Patreon community that's really stunning? I think maybe you do because most of you are part of the Patreon community. And so I might put up a poll to ask for opinions on what you like. Yeah, Cindy's like, I like the pointy. I like all three of them. It's sort of a terrible problem to have. So I know it's not going to hang off of the prints, but I like to see what it looks like with the prints. We have one little point that does not want to stay unfurled, it needs a press. So the pointed is nice. Oh my gosh! Bess has to go to the pharmacy to get her cat a rescue inhaler. Bess, I hope that your kitty cat is okay. Oh my goodness. Sending love. Take very good care, my friend. Oh my gosh. Cindy says you could also do a different lace color with each color of ruffle. All right. But like, that is a fun idea, though. That's a fun idea. All right. I'm not going to commit, but I'm going to show you the three options. So we've got our pointy option. I love this. We've got a bit here. It might only be enough to do one layer of ruffle anyway. So ruffles, they take up quite a bit of fabric. We have this lovely little floral option. This definitely picks up more of that floral vibe. Yep. And then we have got our wonderful little paisley option. So good. So those are our three strong contenders right now. Let me see if I can find my black lace in a timely fashion, and we can look and see if there are any strong options in there for the green layer. I think Captain Azar is right that the black lace would disappear if it's right next to the pattern, but it might look nice on the edge of the green. But it will also depend because, I could change my mind at any moment about the lace, and it will depend a bit on like how much I have and things. But yeah. And Mama Step says, I love the floral. Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, some great options. So bear with me whilst I go grab my other bin of lace. Yes, of course. I have it divided by color. I have quite a bit of the of different laces. Yeah, so the color that's going under the green lace is this gray striped fabric. Yeah. So vibes and whimsy. It's how lace is chosen. That's absolutely exactly 100% correct, Captain Azar. Oh my goodness. All right. Let me see here. Oh goodness. The other thing is I could put a row of lace over the top of the ruffles and then have the ruffles have no lace on them and just finish the bottom edges of the ruffles in a plain way. So there are so many ways to approach the lace. Too many choices. I will make myself crazy. But I do love looking at the lace. And this is a nice way to sort of finish up. Not that I'm done myself, you understand, but what did I do? What did I do? Oh my goodness. How irksome. Pardon me for just a moment. There you are. All right, I'm back. I hope I'm back. Let's see if it's working. I tell you, sometimes this is overall it's been very good, but can you still see me? Let me see. I'll do this. The picture is frozen, of course. Well, maybe that is our sign, my darling. Oh, Monsieur Ghetto, don't help. I don't like it. Let's see here. I'm frozen. It's because nope, nope. Right. Well, all right. So long farewell. Uh the picture's gone and so must we. Yes, I think that means because the wonderful software is decided that it does not want me to continue. The Pixies want their tribute. So I will post some pictures, Patreon subscribers, my darlings, my wonderful darlings. I promise that I will be posting a poll about the lace and such on Patreon. So I hope you will help me make some decisions. It has been fun. Thank you all for being here. I love getting to spend time with you. I'll see you Friday night for our special Friday tea. I have two guests joining me this week, TM Kuta and MB Kelly. Joining me, we're going to be talking about books. Mostly, we're going to be talking about Suffolk books for Suffolk September. So do come join me 6:30 p.m. on all the places where you're watching now, hopefully with fewer technical difficulties. Please remember to take very good care of yourselves, my darlings. Treasure yourselves as I treasure you. And get those vaccines and boosters, wash your hands, get your vitamins and minerals, wear the best lace and your brightest tiara to go out into the world. No matter what you do, remember, you are irreplaceable and I adore you. I will see you next time right here. Cheers.